Hey guys, welcome to today's video. We're going to be discussing the evolution of NFL offenses and what a modern offense looks like. Before we get started, please like and subscribe. It really helps my channel grow. And on a quick side note, if you don't already know, I've been writing some articles for theuptalk.com, which is basically a sports article website where anyone under the age of 22 can post articles on any sports topic that they're interested in. If y'all are interested on reading some of the articles on the website, there's some really interesting articles up. Or if you guys are under the age of 22 and are interested in doing some sports writing, then you can check out theuptalk.com via the link in the description down below. There's some really interesting articles up, and we're coming out with new content daily. But now let's dive into the video, and I hope you enjoy. So over the past 100 years of NFL history, the game of football has really changed. Let's talk about the offensive side in this video. Offensively, at the start of the NFL's history, football was a very run-based game. In fact, football before the pass was about hard-nosed running, tough plays, and playing the possession game. Picking up first downs and keeping the other team away from the football are all parts of what running the football has to offer. That's why when you think of the greats before the pass era of football in the 1960s and the early 1970s, you'll think of Hall of Fame running backs or quarterbacks like Jim Brown, Gale Sayers, Walter Payton, Franco Harris, O.J. Simpson, and the quarterbacks guys like Fran Tarkenton and Roger Staubach. And even those quarterbacks were very good scramblers, and they were good quarterbacks who could move their feet and pick up yards outside the pocket. To put this into reference, in 1972, the NFL's leading passer was Joe Namath. And that season, he threw for 2,800 yards. In 1990, it was Warren Moon with 4,700 yards. And in second place, it was Jim Everett with 3,900 passing yards. In 2019, first place was Jameis Winston, where he threw for 5,100 yards in Tampa Bay last season. And in second place was Dak Prescott with 4,900 yards. Look how much that has changed. Look at how much those numbers have changed. And that really gives you an idea of how offenses have really moved towards throwing the football. Sid Gillman, who's a Hall of Fame NFL coach, said the big play comes from the pass. God bless those runners because they get you the first down, give you ball control, and keep your defense off the field. But if you want to ring the cash register, you have to pass. In fact, Gillman was one of the first coaches to really implement the pass into his offenses and to really make sure that the pass was an integral part of the NFL football game. Gillman was one of those revolutionary thinkers, and he's one of the guys to get the ball rolling to really see where we are today with how pass-heavy the NFL is. In 1978, the NFL changed a lot of rules that allowed for NFL teams to be more efficient throwing the football. And by more efficient, I mean a lot more efficient. In 1977, the average number of points scored in a game were 34.4, and by 1980, it was up to 41 points per game. So what were these rules? Some of these rules were like allowing offensive linemen to be able to block easier, or for defensive backs to be unable to have too much contact with receivers deeper downfield. Innovators like Don Coryell really took advantage of these new rules, and they made fundamental changes to the NFL offense. Don Coryell was the Chargers head coach, and he commanded one of the NFL's most highly talented and most electrifying offenses with the Chargers, with Dan Fouts at quarterback for a number of years after these new rules came into place. As more and more success appeared from different offenses that were built off the pass, new systems spread around football and made it a pass-heavy game. Don Coryell was one of those early leaders after what he did with Dan Fouts and the Chargers. But just look at schemes like the West Coast offense, the air raid offense, or even just your spread offenses that were built to stretch defenses. In today's NFL, offenses throw the ball on average 60% of the time. That's what your average NFL offense does. And when we talk about run-heavy offensive schemes, like what we see in Tennessee or in Minnesota, they're more balanced offensive schemes. Run-heavy offensive schemes were the schemes back in the 1960s and 1970s where basically all that football teams did were run the football. Yes, they threw the football too, but the running game set up the pass game. And although that's still true, the run game was the main focal point. Now in today's NFL, the pass game is the main focal point. And the run game is something that is done to make the pass game work. So basically, new rules came into play, and those rules really affected how the NFL offense worked. Generational coaches saw ways that they could exploit those rules, and guys like Don Coryell really envisioned offenses where the pass was the big difference maker. It was the thing that offenses could rely on to move the football downfield and to score a lot of points. And when you look in today's NFL, they're the highest scoring offenses that the league has ever had. Not only do offenses put up a lot of points, but they're really efficient because they throw the ball so much, right? It's no secret that throwing the football gets you more yards than running the football. And if you give a running back 25 touches a game compared to giving a quarterback 25 throws in a game, the likely outcome is that your quarterback's going to throw for more yards than your running back's going to run for. But now that we've talked about the evolution of NFL offenses and some of the key factors into what really changed from those early 1960s where you had guys like Jim Brown and Gale Sayers running over everyone. Whereas these days, the NFL is much more in a pass-oriented place. So now that we've covered that, let's talk about what the modern NFL offense looks like, or what the principal modern offense is. So a majority of offenses in today's NFL run off 3 receiver sets. This allows offenses to spread the field. What does spreading the field do? Having 3 receivers on the field and maybe a tight end or a running back really make sure that the defense isn't all in one place and can't just focus on one player. They've got to really space out, and that allows for space in between defenders to catch footballs and make plays. Also, the NFL is moving toward mobile and accurate quarterbacks, right? Back in the 50s, the 60s, and the 70s, or even in the 80s and 90s, you'll see some of the great quarterbacks of all time, like Otto Graham or Johnny Unitas, Dan Marino, have really small completion percentages. For a lot of NFL history, a lot of the great quarterbacks have been under 60% completion percentage, especially in the 50s, the 60s, and the 70s, and in a large part due to those rules that weren't in place yet. Those rules that really restricted what wide receivers could do, and it really helped defenses out in stopping the pass. But now that those NFL rules are a lot more lenient, you'll see these quarterbacks have really, really high completion percentages in the 65s, the 67s, the 70% completion percentage, which is the real elite tier. You'll see guys like Drew Brees, who last year had an over 70% completion percentage, which would have been unheard of about 30 or 40 years ago. That would never have happened. Also, they're really mobile quarterbacks. You look at Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, Cam Newton, all these guys who are good pocket quarterbacks who can also throw on the run and who can make plays on the run too. They can pick up yards with their legs. Obviously, Michael Vick did that, and although he was probably a little bit before his time in that regard, other guys like Colin Kaepernick or Josh Allen are coming up more and more often because they added another dimension and another level to the game. If you look at Kyler Murray, another guy, strong arm, great quarterback, but he's also a mobile guy who can move out in space and pick up yards when a play breaks down. Overall, that's what the modern quarterback looks like. He's a guy who can throw for 4,500 yards in a season, 30 touchdowns and 10 interceptions, and throw for a 65 to 70% completion percentage. Plus, they're able to run and make plays out of the pocket. They're able to pick up yards using their legs, and that's what the NFL quarterback does. Running backs are a completely different story. Running backs throughout history have always been intended to run the football and pick up yards and control the clock. But in today's NFL, the running backs are a bigger part of the passing game than ever before. If you look at guys like Christian McCaffrey, James White, Austin Eckler, Miles Sanders, a lot of these running backs are big pass catchers too, and the list goes on. Ezekiel Elliott, Leonard Fournette. There are tons and tons of players that are really, really good runners, but also add another dimension in the passing game. That's the modern running back, and the modern running back is able to make a difference as a pass catcher and as a rusher. Look at the success that Christian McCaffrey had in 2019 as he rushed for over 1,000 yards and he had over 1,000 receiving yards. Those numbers are ludicrous, but they're only going to continue to increase in the future. As the NFL continues to move towards a pass-heavy league, having more players that can be good in the passing game is a real asset for NFL offenses, and having a guy like Christian McCaffrey on your roster is a huge asset because he can be a great runner and he can be a great pass catcher, and that multi-dimensional player is an awesome variable to add to any offense. It gives the offense another flavor, another spice, another thing that they can do, and another thing that they can do effectively. If you throw a check down to your elusive running back like Austin Eckler, he could end up picking up 15 yards, and that's a first down. Now let's move on to wide receivers. Wide receivers these days are, of course, fast. Of course, they're strong. But the main thing with wide receivers in the modern NFL is speed. Speed is king. I mean, just look at what the Kansas City Chiefs have done with Andy Reid, Tyreek Hill, Demarcus Robinson, McCole Hardman, Sammy Watkins. All those guys are really, really, really fast, and they're really good football players too. Speed is king in today's NFL. Look at the success that a guy like Lamar Jackson had just as a runner because of his speed and his elusiveness. Overall, speed is where the game is heading. And if you look at how offenses are building, they're building off speed. Look at what the Broncos did in the NFL draft by picking up KJ Hamler. But that's not the only thing. Look at how the Raiders passed up on Jerry Jeudy and CeeDee Lamb in favor of Henry Ruggs, who's the speed demon. Speed is king. Look at what Cincinnati did a few years ago by picking up John Ross. And although that didn't end up working out, NFL offenses realized that speed is really important to stretch the field, spread out offenses, and make offensive efficiency better, make quarterbacks' life easier, and take the top off a defense. Almost every offense in the NFL has one or two elite deep threats that can really spread out the field and space defenses out. That's key to a modern NFL offense. And at the end of the day, speed is king at the wide receiver position. Plus, the last component to a modern NFL offense are big, strong tight ends that are assets as pass catchers and run blockers. Look no further than George Kittle. In 2019, Kittle had 85 or so catches for over 1,000 yards and 5 receiving touchdowns, but he was also a top-tier run blocker at the tight end position, and he was also just a top-tier run blocker out of any run blocker in the NFL. The San Francisco 49ers running game in 2019 was a lot better with Kittle on the field compared to when Kittle was off the field. So you can see how a guy who can be a great pass catcher, an elite pass catcher, in fact, and a terrific run blocker is a real asset for any offense in the NFL. That's a key to any offense in the future. And as modern offenses continue to evolve and grow, more and more tight ends are going to continue popping up that can be big difference makers at their size and their speed and their skill set. If you look 20 or 25 years ago, you didn't see that many elite tight ends in the NFL. Most of the tight ends that have popped up in the past 10 or 15 years have been great because of their big size, their big frames, their big athleticism, and their great pass catching abilities. But now add in them as great run blockers, and you have stacked offenses. Plus, all of this is in the name of more points and better football, more exciting football, and more interesting and more fun football to watch. As more points are put up on the board, that means that offenses are being more efficient than ever. They're throwing the football more often than ever. And overall, football is becoming more and more exciting to watch. I'm just going to go back to this quote by Sid Gillman, who said that the big play comes from the pass. And he said that if you want to ring the cash register, you have to pass. And nothing can be closer to the truth. Modern day NFL offenses, coaches, offensive coordinators have really taken those words to heart, and they've really incorporated the pass as where the NFL is moving to in 2020 and into the future. So overall, new NFL rules have really made and changed the NFL and how NFL offenses have evolved. Plus, in today's NFL game, big, strong mobile quarterbacks are key, who also are able to get out of the pocket and make plays on the run. Running backs that are able to be great as pass catchers, and wide receivers that can really take the top off a defense and really space out the field due to their speed are great to have. Plus, tight ends that can be great pass catchers and run blockers are definitely staples of a modern offense. Overall, I think that as football continues to evolve and continues to grow, we're going to continue to see the pass become more and more dominant and the run to slowly diminish more and more. I wouldn't be surprised in the next 10 years if we end up seeing that most teams run the football around 30% of the time, and that's already happening. A lot of teams throw around 65, 66, 67% of the time, and I could continue to see that increase in the near future. Overall, though, how did you enjoy the video? If you liked it, please like and subscribe for more. I really appreciate that. It really helps my channel grow. Also, if you have any new ideas about any upcoming videos, also leave your ideas in the comment section down below. I love to hear what you guys have to say. And at the end of the day, I hope you enjoyed the video. And until next time, see ya.